Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, April 28th, 2021, and today we're going to be talking about the California recall election for Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, the reason why we're discussing this is because officially, according to the California Secretary of State, there have been enough signatures verified for the recall election to take place in the summertime or nearing around the wintertime. Pretty much. You know, the worst fears for Gavin Newsom have been confirmed today, and when I say worst fears, to be honest, the man doesn't have much to worry about. But we're going to be talking about why this is important and what this means for the trajectory of California over the next couple of months, how much we're going to actually see impacted by this recall election, and how Gavin Newsom has already been combating it starting months ago. So the California recall election comes as a result of the COVID-19 restrictions in the state, comes as a result of the hypocrisy of the governor for meeting indoors, having a dinner with well over the allowed amount by the CDC, enforcing guidelines he himself did not follow. So Gavin Newsom, while a hypocrite, is arguing that because he has apologized and because he is helping the state get on the right track in terms of COVID, that he should not be recalled. This is a question of whether or not the California voters want to take him out of office due to a number of missteps, including the French laundry scandal, which is the hypocrisy part of it. In addition, some people across the state, many of them, believe that the COVID restrictions are too much and that they are too detrimental to the statewide economy and to the statewide citizens. So this recall election officially has enough signatures, and honestly, I'm not surprised. You know, what we heard from the recall camp was that they had 2.1 million signatures by March 15th. That was the deadline. 2.1 million. Well, how many do you need in order to trigger a recall election? Well, looking here, it says 1.5 million. So they had 2.1 million. However, the question was, are these valid signatures? If they weren't valid, the recall election wasn't going to happen. But the Secretary of State announces today, Shirley Weber, whichever one, I'm not entirely sure. Please let me know. I will check the comments. Has announced today that 1.6 million signatures have already been found as valid. So they're over the threshold by over 100,000, and they're already at 1.5 million. And, you know, the thing is that these recall election petitioners would not want invalid signatures. You know, they have more than enough people to get valid signatures. 1.5 million may seem like a lot, but just as a little bit of a flashback, in the 2018 election, Gavin Newsom, won 7.7 million votes. The Republican won 4.7 million. So if you have around 4.7 million people who voted against Gavin Newsom to begin with, you're probably going to find 1.5 million that are willing to fill out this to get him out of office. But it's not that easy. Now that it's officially, going to go underway, according to the Secretary of State in California, that means we are going to see a recall election, according to CNN says, as early as summer and as late as December. So there's about a time period here, a buffer, to allow candidates to campaign, allow the recall effort to officially go underway, and for voters to figure out where they're going to vote, what they are going to do with Gavin Newsom. So if we're talking about recalls in United States history, there have only been 3 recalls in U.S. history, recall elections for governors. Only 3. One of them just so happens to be the state of California, where we saw Gray Davis, the incumbent Democratic governor, recalled by the voters in California, a yes vote of 55.39%. And then on that second ballot, a Republican took over. That Republican was none other than Arnold Schwarzenegger. Isn't that interesting? Celebrities have a long history in California. You have him, you have Ronald Reagan, and now you have Caitlyn Jenner running in 2021 in this California recall election. This recall election is confirmed. When I made videos about this, I had seen some comments about people talking about, well, what if the signatures aren't valid? What if this recall election doesn't actually happen? Well, it is actually happening. We are going to see it take effect unless the Secretary of State lied. And there's a lot on the line if you lie about something as big as this. So looking at the 2021 recall election, Gavin Newsom is going to be in for a very interesting election. He is going to need to fight this. This will not be something that he can just walk into and say, don't recall me, and that will happen. While that's something will be potential, it's a possibility for Gavin Newsom to not really care about this election, he'd probably try to play it safe. And if I was on his campaign operation team, I would tell him that this is the serious and the most real time that we could actually see a Democrat removed from office in California, or just a Democrat losing a statewide election in California. I think it's highly unlikely, but in California, highly unlikely for Democrats means a 20-30% chance of being defeated versus, other states where it would be 60, 70, 80%. So looking at the possibility of Gavin Newsom being recalled, it's not high, but it's certainly higher than if he was just running in a traditional election against a Republican. Much, much higher. So if we're looking at the candidates on the Republican side, and we've had no Democrats announce that they are running, and I'm sure that right before the election, someone will get their name on the ballot. Why? Because the Democratic Party is going to need a go-to. This lack of Democrats on the ballot, I think, really indicates that the Democratic Party is not viewing this as a real threat, but I will say, I can almost guarantee it, we will probably have a Democrat on the ballot just in the off chance that Newsom is recalled and the voters opt for a Democrat. Now, if you look at the Republican list here, you have some notable names. You have the former mayor of San Diego. You have the 2018 Republican nominee. You have Caitlyn Jenner. You have a number of Republicans that are running in this race. And the thing is, they can all be there. There is not some Republican primary, independent primary, Democratic primary. No. You could have 100, 150 candidates on this recall election, and I can tell you now, you will probably have that. You will probably have a large amount of Republicans, Democrats, independents on the ballot. The question is, are they reputable? Are they, notable? Will they actually get votes? Chances are the vote splitting will be so tremendous. In addition, Gavin Newsom probably won't be recalled. We've actually had a recent recall election, at least moderately recent in terms of modern political history. And it was a recall election in 2012 for Scott Walker, a Republican governor who was recalled. Now, this recall election forced the voters to go to the ballot in summer of 2012. There was 900,000 signatures collected to recall Scott Walker. And then it was assumed that because he was a part of the recall process, that he might not win. Well, in 2012, in this recall election, Scott Walker absolutely won. He defeated his Democratic opponent in a state that Obama had just won by double digits. Might I add, by double digits 4 years prior to this, and then went on to win this state by nearly that in 2012. Scott Walker still won his election by 6 points in the same year that Obama won by larger than that in Wisconsin. And if you look at 2010, it's interesting that, Scott Walker actually won less of the vote. Yes, you heard me. Less of the vote in 2010 than he did in 2012, despite 2010 being an overwhelming Republican year. So the fact that Walker was able to do better in the runoff of the recall election is absolutely astounding and really goes to show that he is a strong candidate and he was a strong governor and someone who might return for 2022. So Gavin Newsom, I think, is closer to the 2012 Wisconsin results than he is to the 2003 California results, but nothing is a done deal. Now, Gavin Newsom has been trying to paint this recall as a Republican recall. If you look at the endorsements for Gavin Newsom, something that you might notice is that there are a lot of top officials up there. You have Joe Biden, the President of the United States. You have Cory Booker, Alex Padilla, Katie Porter, Ro Khanna, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Stacey Abrams. The list goes on, right? You have a number of people across the Democratic Party that are trying to paint this as a Republican recall. And I can't find a better strategy for the Democrats than that, because yes, there are Democrats who want Gavin Newsom out. I know that's hard to think about. I know that may be surprising if you're not from California. Maybe if you're from California, not so surprising. But the thing is, there are some Democrats who want Gavin Newsom out. The polling data seems to suggest that. While Gavin Newsom will likely survive based off these numbers, he's only around plus 11 in terms of those who say, no, do not remove Gavin Newsom. Plus 11 is not nearly as good as being up by 21-22 like he was in 2018. Plus 11 is not nearly as good as the nearly plus 30 for Biden on the presidential level. So that means there are either a lot of Democrats undecided, which is probably a likely amount, and then also there are just some Democrats who are crossing over and saying, I don't want Gavin Newsom. I want him out. I may have voted for him in 2018 or just didn't vote altogether, but now I'm saying I don't want him in office. So the numbers here, you have 38% of the voters saying, I want Gavin Newsom out. You have 49% saying, no, keep him in, with around, let's say, 13% undecided or refuse to answer the polling data, whatever, 13% remaining. That means, for Gavin Newsom to survive, all he needs is 2%. 2% out of the remaining 13%, right? For the Republicans, or for the recall effort to actually officially go underway, they will practically, and they actually will, need to win all of the undecided vote. Now, this is based off polling data that actually might be a little bit outdated. You have a Berkeley poll from, January combined with 2 March polls, but the ones in March do hold very drastically different results. Emerson is telling us the no do not remove is +4, and then you have a PPIC poll that's showing the no do not remove +16. It's a little bit tricky, but the yes remove number actually hovers around the same amount. I think it's largely due to the fact that the polling sample might have been just a little bit different. But all in all, the average is +11 statewide. That's not nearly as good as it would be for Gavin Newsom had he remained as popular as he was right in the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. So Newsom certainly has taken a dip in popularity. But if you look at the numbers, the polling data tells us from the Public Policy Institute of California that 56% of voters are saying, no, I don't want Gavin Newsom off. And then if you look at the approval rating of Gavin Newsom, you might know that his approval rating is 53% amongst adults and 52% amongst, or right around there, amongst all voters. So pretty much his approval rating is in the low 50s. Low 50s. That's the main takeaway. It's sometimes +11, +8, +9. Main thing is that Gavin Newsom is approved of more than he is disapproved of, which can explain as to why he isn't the favorite to be recalled from office. That's why the numbers aren't so favorable for those who initiated the recall effort. And the recall effort, I will say, I do personally believe was a largely partisan-made event. If you go into depth and you go onto the recall effort website, research the person who organized this, research the person who put together this campaign. Before, it used to say, member of the blank party, blank Republican Party, or blank county Republican Party. Sorry about that. I don't remember which county. But I do remember that the organizer of the website did have the Republican Party on the campaign. That has since been removed. That has since been extracted. But do your research as to who organized this, because it did start with a Republican, and the majority of these signatures are coming from Republicans. And the majority of those who are saying, no, don't remove Gavin Newsom, are Republicans. And when it comes down to a ballot vote, the Democratic Party is going to try to position this and say, if Gavin Newsom is out, a Republican is coming in. I think that the recall effort would be in a much better position if, we saw a number of top Democrats come out in support of the recall, but we really aren't seeing that. If there truly was this internal divide within the GOP, within the Democratic Party, Gavin Newsom might actually be on his way out. If the Democratic Party of California comes together and says, let's endorse this candidate, make sure people vote yes, and then they elect another Democrat, well, that wouldn't be the worst case for Democrats, but based off what we've seen so far from statewide officials, local officials, national officials, literally the President of the United States, it seems as if the Democratic Party has coalesced around Gavin Newsom and made it so this is viewed as a partisan push rather than a bipartisan movement. Because it is largely lopsided with the GOP, but I think the Democratic Party is severely underplaying the amount of Democrats that are on board with this. But I also think that it's not nearly enough to make this recall actually a reality. I don't think there's enough Democrats on board to kick Gavin Newsom out. In fact, the only poll that shows the recall effort in the yes is a Republican internal. The only one is a Republican internal. So keep that in mind. Like I had said before, 2012, not 2003. That's what we're probably going to see. Even though there are enough signatures, even though the Secretary of State has said, yes, I believe that this recall effort will be underway, it probably isn't going to be as bad as it might seem for Gavin Newsom. It always sounds horrible that, your voters, your constituents came together and said, I want you out, but that's all it is. He will likely survive this recall, enter into 2022 as the favorite because he's still a Democrat from California. You can put pretty much anyone up there with that D next to their name, and they will likely perform very well statewide, even someone who was subject to a recall. Remember this, 2012, not 2003. Mark my words on it. When we see that recall effort election officially underway and you get the results early and you see that Gavin Newsom, or when you see the results pour in, and you see Gavin Newsom is in the favored to actually remain in office, you're going to realize this is exactly what we expected. He's popular right now. He's set to reopen California by June 15th to June 16th, so right around mid-June. He's really trying to appease the constituents that tried to get him out in the first place. And he's painting this, and he's calling it this, a Republican recall, largely because that is the messaging that works in California. And he knows it. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord server for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2022 election analysis videos. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all later today.